in 1 Corinthians chapter 13 at verse 4. This is not going to be what we take apart here this morning and talk on and reduce to principles that we can understand and that kind of thing. This is background for what we're doing, but we need to have it in mind. 1 Corinthians 13, verse 4, love suffers long and is kind. Love, pardon me. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself, is not puffed up, does not behave rudely, does not seek its own, is not provoked, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. If you ask me a lot of questions about Hollywood and actors and actresses, I'm afraid you would embarrass me with my ignorance. But I want to bring up one such name here just now, John Stamos. You probably know more about him than I do and what he has done and so forth. Anyway, in 2014, his mother died. He and his mother were very close. She left him a note, and he just, within the last few months, was able to take the note and reply to it. It says, "My dear sweet mom, shortly after you died, I found something you wrote. I was sitting at your famous kitchen table, the same table where all the family therapy sessions would happen, and I was wondering how I could possibly get through one single day without you. I honestly felt I could not go on." The note read, "Life is an occasion. Rise to it. Don't be sad because I died. Be happy because I lived. I had a wonderful life." You meant for me to find that note when I did, and now I'm ready to write you back. Your whole life was completely unselfish. Those sparkling hazel eyes were always looking for good in people. We'd go to a restaurant and you'd start talking to the waiter or the waitress. "Oh, you're so pretty. Oh, you're such a smart young man." This and that. Everyone, pardon me, everyone who spent time with you walked away feeling better about themselves, especially me, Elena, and Janine. We used to joke with you about it, call you overbearing, and just say, "Stop, please, Mom, come on." But now I find myself doing it too. Being overly complimentary, lovey, gushy, accentuating the good in people. You called your house the castle of comfort for me. If I was working really hard or stressed out, I could drive down there on Saturday morning, spend the weekend, get my strength back for the week. You poured a lifetime of love into me, and that's what I remember best. 2.5 years later, the love still gets me through every day. I know you were worried about me toward the end of your life because of the brief time I wasn't living the way you thought you taught me to live. You told my friends you were worried. I was naive in thinking I could pull the wool over your eyes because you're so accepting and everything, but the truth is you saw it all. And things got rougher after you passed away. How could it not? You were the most important thing in my life. I allowed outside things to come in and cloud my spirit, but it was your strength that got me through it. Your voice, your beautiful face, your overabundance of love always bouncing, running in the back of my mind, and certainly in my heart. Maybe someday I'll have a kid or two, and maybe they'll have red hair like yours, although, like you used to say, yours came from a bottle. Maybe they'll say, I love you more, like you always did. But mostly I hope they have your humility and unselfishness and your ability to bring sunshine to anyone that had the pleasure of meeting you. Oh, and I'll promise you this, no matter how busy I am about how crazy life gets, I will always take time to write them lots of little notes the way you did. I miss you madly, Mother. Until we meet again, and we will, happy Mother's Day. I love you more, Johnny. These holidays get to be kind of hard and tight sometimes because we've all lost mothers, or we will. Death is a part of life. It's a certainty. And the bad thing about it is the separation, the tearing away. That's when we live in these memories. Somebody said to me once, preacher, this Mother's Day business, that's a secular holiday. What are we doing in church celebrating Mother's Day? That's a secular holiday. It has nothing to do with the Bible. Well, I didn't know what to say. How do you argue with ignorance? Genesis 3:20 says that Adam named his wife Eve because she was the mother of all living. God invented this motherhood stuff. God invented this family. God established this as the way things are supposed to work. And I'd even go so far as to say, expanding it from motherhood to the family, I'd even go so far as to say that most of the things that are wrong in this world will never be right until we get the family right. But let's go back to motherhood here for a minute. That's another thing for another day. I know you're hoping it's another day. You had some plans for this afternoon, I bet. Yeah. See, there is a connection between motherhood, Mother's Day, and the cross. A clear, important connection. And that connection is love. Nobody is going to find the love of God revealed to him and understand it if he has never learned love. And the first place we learn love is that first instant there with that mother. The first example of love that we see in life is motherhood. And this process begun here of our learning love that follows us through life. She stays there and pumps that love in all the time. And somewhere in life we come to the idea that God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. What does that mean, love the world? That makes no sense to me. I didn't learn love. Oh, no. Mother begins that process the instant she picks you up. You are loved before you're ever born. But as soon as you are able to observe anything, the mother demonstrates love to you. And motherhood is the first step to heaven. If you don't learn love along the way, you'll never learn the love that God expresses. Unfortunately, some of us learn love only partly. We learn a little bit about it, and then life throws some things at us that shouldn't be there, that turn our heads another direction. Well, the salvation of anyone, anywhere in the world is rooted in love expressed in love and taught in love, the home, parents are of primary importance in spreading the gospel. Motherhood, fatherhood, parenthood, familyhood, all ought to be celebrated in the church. Secular holidays, we call them, but my land, there are eternal outcomes from this. Before we go any farther, I suppose, I want mothers especially to understand that you are honored by the service that God has assigned to you because of your part in the salvation of eternal souls. Well, this is a long time from a 20-year-old receiving Christ as his Savior. When he was born, yeah, that's where the process started. And then I want you to remember something else, because there are mothers, fathers who would say, well, I taught him right, but he's gone off in this other direction now, and I did my part, I thought. Count on the fact that you did your part. Remember God's principle that one sows, another waters, and another reaps. You sowed, continue to sow. Now your job is prayer. Your job is not to save the person. You can't do that. Count on God now. Don't worry. We said love must be learned. I want to read you something else now. Author, theologian, seminary professor Lloyd Ogilvie wrote this: "My formative years ingrained in me that quid pro quo into my attitude toward myself. Do and you will receive. Perform and you will be loved. When I got good grades, achieved, was a success, I felt acceptance from my parents. My father taught me to fish and hunt and worked hard to provide for us, but I seldom heard him say, 'Lloyd, I love you.' He tried to show it in actions, and sometimes I caught a twinkle of affirmation in his eyes, but I still felt empty. When I became a Christian, I immediately became so involved in discipleship activities that I did not experience the profound healing of the grace that I talked about theoretically. I'll never forget, as long as I live, the first time I really experienced healing grace. I was a postgraduate student at the University of Edinburgh. Because of financial pressure, I had to accordion my studies into a shorter than usual period. Carrying a double load of studies was very demanding, and I was exhausted by the constant feeling of never having measured up. No matter how good my grades were, I thought they could be better. Sadly, I was not living the very truths I was studying. Although I could have told you the Greek words for grace and joy were charis and chara, I was not experiencing them. My beloved professor, Dr. James Stewart, that slightly built dynamo of a saint, saw into my soul with x-ray visions. One day as I passed through New College, he stopped me. He looked me in the eye intensely. Then he smiled warmly, took my coat lapels in his hands, drew me down to within a few inches from his face, and said, "Dear boy, you are loved now." We have to learn love. We have to learn also that love cannot be earned. Love is without condition. Mothers know that love is dangerous. It has consequences. Love is good put out. It can come back with sharp points. John Killinger, in a book, Lost in Wonder, Love, and Praise, wrote this affirmation: I believe in Jesus Christ, the Son of the living God, who was born of a promise to a virgin named Mary. I believe that the love Mary gave her son that caused her to follow him in his ministry and stand by his cross as he died. I believe in the love that all mothers and its importance in the lives of the children they bear. It is stronger than steel, softer than down, and more resilient than the sapling on the hillside. It closes wounds, melts disappointments, and enables the weakest child to stand tall and straight in the fields of adversity. I believe that this love at its best is only a shadow of the love of God, a dark reflection of what we can expect of Him both in this life and the one to come. I believe that one of the most beautiful sights in the world is a mother who lets this greater love flow through her to her child, blessing the world through the tenderness of her touch and the tears of her joy. To love is to incur a debt. To be loved is to incur a debt. It's by this process of love, begun from the mother, taught throughout life by others, that one loved incurs a debt that he in turn loves, that the gospel crosses the world, and it begins here with mother. David Livingstone spent much of his life in Africa. He said on this one occasion, "People talk of the sacrifice I have made spending so much of my life in Africa. Can that be called a sacrifice, which is simply acknowledging a debt we owe to our God, which we can never repay? Is that a sacrifice which brings its own reward in healthful activity, the consciousness of doing good, peace of mind, and a bright hope of eternal destiny? It is emphatically no sacrifice. Rather, it is a privilege. Anxiety, sickness, suffering, danger, foregoing the common conveniences of life, these may cause us to pause, cause the spirit to waver, the soul to sink. But let this only be for a moment. All these are nothing compared to the glory which shall be revealed in us and through us. I never made a sacrifice. Of this we ought not to talk when we remember the great sacrifice He made, who left His Father's throne on high to give Himself for us. The love that we've received, the love that has been given to us, reinforces us as we take on the tasks that express our love to others. Well, we've gotten to this point, and I'm kind of proud. You should see the amount of stuff I left out of here. So you please drink a toast to me when you have your coffee after dinner today. There is one more thing. Elizabeth Clefane, and I apologize to her and to anybody who knows her or knew her for the pronunciation of her name. I had my nose in hymn books. For years, I never heard this name pronounced. So if you figure it out or if you know, then there's several here who might. Let me know after the service, please. She wrote the hymn Beneath the Cross of Jesus, and she wrote these words: upon the cross of Jesus, my eyes at time can see the very dying form of one who suffered there for me. And from my smitten heart with tears, two wonders I confess, the wonders of His glorious love and my unworthiness. I take, O cross, thy shadow for my abiding place, and ask no other sunshine than the sunshine of your face. Content to let the world go by, to know no gain nor loss, my sinful self, my only shame, my glory, all the cross. This process begins. Love is passed on, love is built, love is learned, and love passes on, and with it the gospel, because of the debt we incur as a part of love that's shown to us, both the Savior's and those of other people. Jesus said, people won't know who you are except they'll know you're mine because you have love for one another. One of the important aspects, one of the important reasons for that love is that it spreads the gospel. Have you been to that cross? I must ask you this morning. It all revolves around the cross. That's where love reached its highest point of expression. God manifested his love for us. While we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Have you come to that cross for forgiveness? We're going to sing a final hymn. It's a hymn of decision. Do you have any business that you need to do with God this day? We all need to praise him. We all need to thank him for the process that he put into motion. For Mother who did her part in that. That's kind of hard to do when you're thanking him for one thing he did for you while you reject the main thing. Have you come to Christ at his cross? Has his love drawn you? Are you ready to commit to it? We'll do our business with God.